At 23, I thought I had found the love of my life. I felt butterflies that wouldn't stop fluttering, promises whispered under starry nights, and a conviction in my heart that this was forever. Every smile felt like destiny, every touch like fate, and every I love you seemed like it would last a lifetime. I believed I had chosen wisely, that I had found the perfect partner to walk beside me through life's joys and storms. But 60 years later, I can say this with painful honesty. I married the wrong person. Yes, the wrong person. And the cost. The cost was far greater than I ever imagined. Not just in missed laughter or lonely evenings, but in the slow erosion of dreams, in the silent compromises that chipped away at my spirit, and in the quiet moments when I realized I had settled for comfort instead of true understanding. I'm not telling you this to dwell on regret. I'm telling you this because the story of my life, my mistakes, my lessons, my heartbreak can be a warning and a guide, because I've seen how easy it is to mistake passion for compatibility, excitement for love, and infatuation for forever. If you're watching this, I want you to feel a little of the fear I felt, the confusion, and the painful clarity that comes with hindsight. By the time I finish, you'll understand why I wish someone had told me what I now know, and why the choices you make today about love, about marriage, about the person you decide to spend your life with will define your happiness for decades. So buckle up. This is the story of a lifetime of love, mistakes, and lessons that may make you uncomfortable, but could save you from living a life of quiet regret. When I first met him, I thought I had found everything I'd ever dreamed of. He was charming, attentive, and seemed to understand me in ways no one else ever had. Every date felt like a scene from a movie. Long walks, whispered promises, laughter that lasted late into the night. At 22, I was sure I had found the one. The excitement was intoxicating, and I couldn't imagine a future without him. Our wedding day felt like the beginning of forever. I remember the way he held my hand as we danced, how my heart raced at every glance. I thought love was enough to carry us through anything. I ignored the little things, the sharp words he muttered when frustrated, the impatience behind his charming smile. Back then, I called them quirks, not realizing they were subtle red flags. For the first 10 years, I lived in a bubble of infatuation. Every disagreement felt minor, every frustration easily forgiven, because I was convinced that love would fix it all. I overlooked differences in values and ambition, in how we envisioned our lives together. Infatuation had blinded me. I thought our connection was deeper than it truly was, and I believed the sparks I felt meant we were compatible in every way. Looking back now, I see how that illusion shaped my early marriage. I gave him the benefit of the doubt constantly, excusing behaviors that should have worried me. I believed love could mask incompatibility, and for years it did, but only superficially. That excitement, that rush of passion delayed my awareness of the truth. The first 10 years were a lesson in the dangerous power of infatuation. It can make us blind to reality, make us settle for patterns that aren't healthy, and keep us from asking the hard questions that might have saved years of heartache. I still remember one fight clearly, though I wish I could forget it. It was a small disagreement over something trivial. He had forgotten to call me before going out with friends. At the time, I brushed it off as carelessness, but the sharpness in his voice, the way he dismissed my feelings, planted a seed of unease I didn't understand yet. I told myself it was just a momentary lapse, that everyone had flaws and that love meant overlooking them. But looking back, I realized that was one of the first early warning signs. Small conflicts like this often predict larger long-term problems if left unchecked. I began to notice little patterns, promises broken without apology, excuses that never seemed quite right, and an occasional secretive glance that made me pause, but I ignored them. My pride kept me from confronting him fully, and my fear of rocking the boat kept me silent. I convinced myself that raising concerns might destroy the love I thought we had. For years, I hid my unease from friends and family. I would laugh at the arguments when others asked, pretending everything was perfect. Deep down, though, I was learning something painful. Love alone couldn't fill the gaps of honesty, trust, and respect. I started realizing that some instincts, the discomfort, the small doubts, were worth listening to. Yet, like many of you watching, I chose to dismiss them, hoping time would fix what was clearly unraveling. I shared this story with my granddaughter recently, and she was shocked, saying, "Grandma, I've noticed the same things in my friends' relationships." That's when I realized how common it is. We all see little red flags in our relationships, but fear, hope, and the desire for love make us ignore them. The lesson is clear. Small issues are not insignificant. They are often the first signs of deep long-term conflicts. Listening to your instincts, facing the uncomfortable truths early, and having the courage to address them can save years of heartache. I didn't, and it cost me decades of confusion and hidden pain. For years, I believed compromise was the key to a happy marriage. I adjusted my schedule to fit his, softened my opinions to avoid arguments, and let go of dreams I had once held dear, all to keep the peace. I thought love meant giving up a little for the sake of togetherness, never realizing how much of myself I was quietly surrendering. I remember one particular decision. I wanted to take a short course that could have advanced my career, something I'd been passionate about for years. But he dismissed it as unnecessary and made me feel guilty for even asking. I let it go. I told myself it was a small sacrifice, that my happiness wasn't as important as our marriage. But over time, these small compromises accumulated layer upon layer, like a weight I carried silently. Decades of putting his needs above mine left a lingering emptiness. I began to feel resentful, though I rarely expressed it. I couldn't pinpoint why at first, but the frustration grew quietly, a steady undercurrent in our daily life. I had compromised so often that I no longer recognized my own voice or desires. The lesson is harsh but vital. Constant compromise without true alignment erodes the soul. Ignoring your personal needs might preserve peace temporarily, but it steals joy in the long run. Happiness cannot be built on a foundation of self-denial. It must be nurtured alongside love, respect, and mutual understanding. Looking back now, I see how ignoring my own needs cost me years of fulfillment and self-respect. The compromise that felt like love was, in truth, the slow shaping of a life that wasn't fully mine. It's a lesson I hope younger generations hear. Never give up yourself completely, even for the one you love. Balance is the key, and self-sacrifice should never come at the cost of your own heart. I will never forget the day everything I thought I knew about my marriage shattered. I came home from running errands, expecting the usual quiet, the familiar hum of our routine. Instead, a letter awaited me, a legal notice that revealed a secret I had never even imagined. My husband had another family for 26 years. The words blurred on the page, and my hands shook as reality set in. The man I had loved, trusted, and sacrificed for was living an entirely different life, one I hadn't even known existed. The shock was unbearable. My first thought was disbelief. This must be some mistake, a cruel prank. But as the details unfolded, the truth became undeniable. The man I had built a life with, the man I had celebrated anniversaries with, the man I had shared decades of love and hardship with, had been living a double life. My heart broke in ways I didn't know were possible. For days I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't speak to anyone without breaking down. I withdrew from friends, afraid they would pity me or worse, judge me. My family noticed my silence, my tears, my nervous pacing. The mental toll was immense. Years of subtle doubts, dismissed red flags, and quiet compromises collided with this reality, leaving me in a state of despair. Yet amid the pain, something shifted. The turning point wasn't just discovering his betrayal. It was realizing that I could no longer live in denial. Self-awareness is painful, but it is necessary. Accepting the truth allowed me to finally see my own life clearly, to acknowledge the ways I had lost myself in compromise, in hope, in blind love. I share this moment not to dwell on bitterness, but to highlight a lesson. Ignoring reality may provide temporary comfort, but it corrodes your mental health, your relationships, and your sense of self. The turning point is the moment you stop pretending, stop excusing, and start facing the truth. It is terrifying, heartbreaking, and liberating all at once, and it marks the beginning of reclaiming your life. After the truth came out, I spent months reflecting on my life, my choices, and my marriage. Regret became a constant companion, whispering reminders of opportunities I had ignored and mistakes I had made. I wished I had spoken up more when small doubts first crept in, instead of excusing his behavior for the sake of peace. I wished I had trusted my instincts, asked harder questions, and paid attention to the quiet signs that something was off. I wished I had valued my own happiness as much as I valued love. One memory haunts me more than any other. A weekend I spent feeling ignored while he was distracted, his excuses polite but hollow. At the time, I told myself, it's nothing, he's just tired. But deep down, I knew that small moment reflected a larger pattern, a lack of alignment, a disconnect I could have addressed before it became a lifetime of deception. I see now that these small decisions accumulate, shaping decades of life in ways we cannot predict. The lesson is painful but undeniable. Some truths can only be learned through experience. No amount of advice or observation could have prepared me for the reality of discovering his secret family or the emotional cost of decades of compromise. Life has a way of teaching us lessons, sometimes the hardest way possible. To younger viewers, I offer this advice. Trust your instincts and never ignore the signs that something is wrong. Speak up early, prioritize your own needs, and recognize that love is not enough if respect, honesty, and alignment are missing. Don't sacrifice your self-worth for the illusion of harmony, and don't postpone your happiness in the hope that things will magically work out. Looking back, I realize that every regret is a teacher, every heartbreak a lesson. While I cannot change the past, I can share what I have learned so that others may avoid the same pain. Life is too short to ignore your own voice. Learn early, act bravely, and never settle for a love that dims who you truly are. After decades of betrayal, heartache, and silence, I finally realized that carrying anger and regret would only continue to steal my life. It wasn't easy and it didn't happen overnight, but I made a conscious decision. I would reclaim my peace, my joy, and my sense of self, no matter how late in life it seemed. I began small. I spent time rediscovering the hobbies I had set aside, reading books I had longed to finish, and reconnecting with friends I had neglected. I allowed myself to feel again joy, laughter, and even simple curiosity about the world around me. Slowly, I understood that forgiveness wasn't about excusing his choices. It was about freeing myself from the burden of resentment. One day, while sitting in my garden, I realized something profound. For the first time in decades, I felt light. I had let go of the anger that had weighed on me, and in that space, I found clarity. I saw that life could still be beautiful, even after betrayal. I learned that self-worth isn't defined by the actions of others. It is cultivated by the choices we make for ourselves. The lesson I want to share with you is simple but powerful. It's never too late to reclaim your joy, your dignity, or your dreams. Even after years of compromise, heartbreak, or disappointment, you can rebuild a life centered on emotional well-being and self-respect. You can create moments of happiness that are entirely yours, free from the shadows of the past. To anyone listening, remember this. Resilience grows in the face of hardship, and wisdom is forged through experience. Pain teaches, mistakes guide, and courage transforms. Life doesn't end with betrayal, regret, or lost years. It begins anew each time you choose yourself. So, I stand here at 86, not as a victim of my circumstances, but as a witness to the strength we all carry. And my message is clear. No matter what your past holds, peace, joy, and fulfillment are always possible. Your life is yours to reclaim, and it is never too late to start. I spent 60 years believing I was living a fairy tale. I thought love alone could carry us through anything, that it could overcome mistakes, secrets, and mismatched values. But the truth I learned painfully and slowly is that love, as powerful as it feels, isn't always enough. Marrying the wrong person can shape decades of your life in ways you don't expect, teaching lessons you never imagined, lessons about patience, resilience, self-respect, and the importance of listening to your own heart. Looking back, I see the warning signs I ignored, the compromises I made at the expense of my own happiness, and the quiet doubts I dismissed because I was afraid to face the truth. My hope in sharing this story is that it encourages you, whoever you are, to reflect on your own relationships. Pay attention to the little things, trust your instincts, and don't let fear or pride prevent you from asking the hard questions. Early awareness can save years of heartache, regret, and hidden pain. Love is precious, but choosing the right person matters even more. And sometimes the hardest truth of all is admitting when you've chosen wrong. It is not weakness to acknowledge it, it is courage. It is the first step toward reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your joy. No matter your age, no matter your circumstances, you can still find peace, growth, and happiness. And sometimes the greatest freedom comes from seeing the truth clearly and making the choice to live authentically.